Hello, kitties. Hello, Belle. Hope you're feeling better, Belle. I heard that you have a sore throat. That's really pretty bad, huh? Especially if you can't eat hard things. Well, today's chapter is chapter 16, Philadelphia. Lewis worked all the last week of September for the boatman in the Boston Public Garden. He was a great success, and he was becoming quite famous. On Saturday, the boatman paid him $100 in cash, which Lewis placed carefully in his money bag. The boatman, after paying the first night's bill at the Ritz-Carlton, decided to let Lewis sleep on the lake instead of in the hotel, and Lewis liked that much better. He slept with the ducks and the geese on the lake, and they floated gracefully on the surface of the water, him with his head tucked under his wing, like the way swans sleep. Lewis took good care of his trumpet, kept it polished, and once a week he cleaned it all up, and he learned new songs whenever he could by listening to people's radios and by attending concerts. He was very good at remembering music. He was a natural born musician, or in his case, a natural hatched musician. One song he liked was Beautiful Dreamer, Wake Unto Me. Whenever he played it, he thought of Serena. And always when he finished it, the passengers on the Swan boat clapped loud and cheered. Lewis liked the applause. It made him feel happy. Sometimes at the end of the afternoon, Lewis played Now the Day is Over. He made it sound sweet and sad. One afternoon when he was leaving the last trip of the day, he played the Cradle Song by Brahms, and the passengers sang along with the words. Lullaby and good night, with roses delight. And a boy in the front seat pulled out a BB gun and began shooting BBs at Lewis's trumpet. Whenever a shot hit the horn, it made a pinging sound. So the Cradle Song sounded something like this. Lullaby, ping, and good night, ping, with the roses delight, ping. And the children on the boat roared with laughter when they heard this, but the grown-ups were angry. One of them took the boy's rifle. Another went home that night and wrote a letter to the Boston Globe urging stronger gun control laws. See, there were Democrats back there. On some afternoons, at the end of the day, people gathered on the shores of the lake to listen while Lewis played taps. It was a peaceful, serene scene, a memorable hour. The Swan boat had never enjoyed such popularity or made so much money for the owner. But Lewis knew that the boats would not run all winter. In the last few days, the boats would be hauled out for the season to wait quietly for the arrival of spring. One day, when Lewis was waiting for the boat to take on its passengers, a Western Union messenger boy appeared on a bicycle with a letter. I have a letter for the Swan, he said. Well, the boatman was quite surprised. He took the letter and he handed it to Lewis, who opened it with his beak, and it said, I'm from Philadelphia. We can offer you $500 a week. $500 a week to play in our nightclub. That's a place where they have a restaurant. 10 weeks, guaranteed. Please reply. Signed, Abe Lucky Lucas, Hotel Nemo. Lewis did some quick figuring. $500 a week for 10 weeks, that was $5,000. $5,000 would easily pay his father's debt to the music store. And he took his slate and he wrote, offer accepted. Arrive tomorrow. Meet me at Bird Lake in the zoo. Splashdown will be at 4:52 p.m. Hope this time will be convenient for you. He showed the message to the Western Union boy, who copied the letter onto a telegraph thing, and then Lewis wrote, send it collect, which means the guy who's getting the message has to pay for it. The messenger folded it up and rowed away, and Lewis stepped back into the water as the boat's lines were cast off. And there's Lewis writing the letter to the messenger boy on a bicycle. Lewis led the way. He knew it was his last appearance with the Swan boat, and that made him feel a little sad. It was a warm, quiet Sunday afternoon, the last Sunday in September, and Lewis played all of his favorite tunes. Lazy River, Beautiful Dreamer, Oh, Ever in the Greening Spring, Now the Day is Over. And then, as the boat neared the dock, he raised his trumpet and blew taps. As the last note echoed off the walls of the Ritz-Carlton Hotel and lingered over the public garden, it was a sad farewell. For the people of Boston, it meant the end of the summer. For the boatman, it meant the end of the best week of business he had ever had. For Lewis, it meant the end of another chapter in his adventurous life, out in the big world, trying to earn enough money to get his father and himself out of trouble. Lewis slept very peacefully that night, being very careful that his money bag was safe. The next day, he flew to Philadelphia to keep his appointment with Mr. Lucas, the man who had sent the telegram. Lewis had no trouble finding Philadelphia. Almost anyone can find Philadelphia who tries. Lewis simply rose into the air with all his things around his neck, and when he was about 1,000 feet in the air, he followed the railroad tracks to Providence, New London, New Haven, Bridgeport, Stamford, Coscob, Greenwich, Port Restert, Rye, Marmanek, New York. When he finally saw the Empire State Building, he veered off to the right, crossed the Hudson River, and followed the railroad tracks to Newark, Trenton, and all points south. At 4:30, he reached the Schuylkill River, and just beyond it, he spied the Philadelphia Zoo. The bird lake looked very attractive from the air. It was crowded with all kinds of waterfowl, ducks and geese mostly, though Lewis thought he also saw 2 or 3 swans. He circled, picked an open spot, and exactly at 4:52 he splashed down. His trumpet banged against his slate knocked against his metal lapped against his chalk pencil on the string wound itself around his money bag. All in all, the splashdown caused quite a commotion. The ducks and geese were not expecting anything like this to happen. A giant trumpeter swan dropping down out of the sky, loaded with all this stuff around his neck. Lewis paid no attention to the other birds. He had a date to keep. He saw a man leaning on a wide railing in front of the birdhouse. The man was dressed in a purple suit and wore this funny hat. His face looked wise, and he knew a great many things. That must be Abe Lucky Lucas, thought Lewis. And here he is. Gotta get this better. There we go. See Lewis with all the stuff around his neck? Oh boy. Lewis swam over quickly. "Go, go," he said through his trumpet. "My pleasure," replied Mr. Lucas. "You are right on time. The splashdown was sensational. Welcome to the Philadelphia Zoo, which crawls with rare mammals and birds and reptiles and amphibians and fishes, including sharks and rays and other fish-like vertebrae. Watch out for wild animals. This place is full of them. Snakes, zebras, monkeys, elephants, lions, tigers, wolves, foxes, bears, hippos, rhinos, woodchucks, skunks, hawks, and owls. I seldom come here myself. My work confines me to working in the city. I'm under a great pressure from my work. How was your trip from Boston?" Lewis picked up his beak, he grabbed his chalk and said, "Smooth. I made good time. What about my job?" "A happy question," replied Mr. Lucas. "The job will start on October the 15th. The final contract has been finalized. Your place of employment is a nightclub of great renown across the river, a place of high fashion and low prices, a jumpy joint. You will be called upon to make appearances each evening except Sunday and play your trumpet for the happy customers. Once in a while you can join a jazz group. Lewis the Swan on trumpet. The pay is very good. My spirits are lifted about thinking about the pay. Wealth and happiness are around the corner for Louis the Swan and Lucky Lucas, the great of heart. My agent's fee is 10%, a mere battlegate. How do I get to the nightclub? Asked Louis, who only stood about half of what Mr. Lucas was saying. In a taxi cab, said Mr. Lucas. Be at the north entrance of the zoo, Girard Avenue and 34th Street at 9 o'clock on the evening of October 15th, a night that will live in memory. A cab will await your pleasure and transport you to the club. The driver is a friend of mine, and he, too, is under great pressure from his work. Who's going to pay for the cab? Asked Louis. I am, replied Mr. Lucas. Lucky Louis, the generous of heart, pays for the cab for Louis the Swan. By the way, I see you're wearing a money bag and it is plump with money. I suggest that you turn this money bag over to me for safekeeping during your stay in Philadelphia. It's a place of many thieves and pickpockets. No, thank you, wrote Louis. We'll keep money bag myself. Very well, said Mr. Lucas, and now there's one other small matter I must bring to your attention. Most of the birds that swim on this luxury lagoon have undergone some kind of surgery. Candor tells me to compel you that the tip of one wing is usually removed by the management. A painless operation, popular with zoos all over the world. Pinioned is the word for it. It keeps the birds in the water and prevents them from leaving this public park. Because when one wing is shorter than the other, the bird's balance is upset and he can't fly. His attempt to take off would be miserable. So I know that you would not like to have the tip of your wing removed. So I approached the man in charge of the birds and I told him not to clip your wing. It is arranged, and he is a man of honor. Your freedom of movement is assured. You will not be pinioned. But in return for this so great a favor on the part of the management of the Philadelphia Zoo, you are to give a free concert here at the lake every Sunday afternoon for the people of Philadelphia. Is it a deal? Yes, wrote Louis. We'll give Sunday concert. Good, said Mr. Lucas. Farewell for now. Be at the entrance at 9 o'clock, October 15th, for the cab. Play well, sweet swan. You will be the finest thing that happened in Philadelphia since the Constitutional Convention of 1787. Louis didn't understand this, but he nodded goodbye to Mr. Lewis and swam off toward the island in the center of the lake. There he stepped ashore, straightened up his things, picked up his feathers, and he rested. He was not sure he was going to like the new job, and he was not sure he liked Mr. Lucas, but he needed the money badly. And when you need money, you're willing to put up with difficulties and uncertainties. One good thing about the whole business was the zoo itself. It seemed like an extremely nice place in spite of what he had heard about having your wings clipped. Louis had no intention of having his wing clipped. I'll sock anybody who tries that on me, he said to himself. He was pleased to see so many other water birds. There were many kinds of ducks and geese, and in the distance he saw, there was 3 trumpeter swans. They were old residents of the lakes. Their names were Curiosity, Felicity, and Apathy. Louis decided he would wait a day or two before making their acquaintance. Bird Lake has a fence around it. When the night came for him to start work, Louis polished his trumpet, put on all of his things, and he flew over the fence and landed at the north entrance. He was there promptly at 9 o'clock. The taxi cab was there waiting just as Mr. Lucas had promised, and Louis got in and was driven away to his new job. Aha! And that's the end of that chapter. And I hope you have a good night.